What is happening, everyone? Today, I am here with Dustin Hutchinson of Color Pros Northwest. Welcome, my friend. Appreciate you jumping onto a business breakthrough.
You got it. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
man. So just starting out, rebranding. What's the story?
I had a remodeling and painting company. Started as a remodeling company and morphed more into a painting company in Western Washington.
Okay.
But it was something that I kind of started out of desperation, honestly.
Gotcha.
I had zero resources, but I had skill that I had learned from
Sure.
working in a cabinet painting shop.
Okay.
So I immediately started taking on jobs. I think it was end of 2019, beginning of 2020 when I took my first, or actually, it was the first job that I did in this space. And I did that. That was my last off the books job. So
Okay.
it was the first job that I did, but the last off the books job I did.
Okay.
And that one was a complete interior repaint, did a bunch of flooring, did a bunch of cabinet painting. Basically, the entire inside of the house got a complete remodel. Every surface got touched. And I realized at the end of that, being not a company, not legitimate, didn't give me the ability to
Right.
charge what I needed to actually be profitable. I could buy my lunch and I could fund the gas for my car,
Sure.
but I wasn't doing anything beyond that. So I immediately took the resources I got from that and put it into incorporating and trying to go legit, but still didn't have a great plan. Didn't have any plan for marketing. Didn't have any plan for doing like what you do with the CRM and project management and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So the next job that I did was we got really lucky. It was an $83,000 project, another complete interior refresh on a very nice house in Buckley, Washington. And we knocked it out of the park. It took a little longer than we wanted it to, but we did a good job. But still, at the end of that one, without the infrastructure in place and a solid plan, I was pretty much back to square one.
Gee. Yeah.
We
How
made
long did
good.
that take you, by the way? That $83,000 job?
Um,
3 months?
I think it was
5 months.
5 months. Yeah, it was what was that house? It's probably a 5,000 square foot house, just me and my son doing all the work.
Unbelievable.
And we had to do it. It was 2 stories, and it was, a full home upstairs and almost another full home downstairs.
Right.
We wound up renting a storage unit and putting everything from the downstairs in the storage unit. So, we were doing moving.
You feel like you made money?
I know I made money, but the
Do you know how much?
situation that I was in, no, I don't know how much. That's part of the problem.
Sure. That's okay.
Because again, coming from a place where, we started with nothing. So everything just had to get rolled back
Your
in.
head's
We had to
down,
buy
right?
all
You're kind of your head's down. You're cranking through it, right? You're just like, let's get
Correct.
this done. You're surviving, right? I mean, it's probably a little challenging getting those draws, getting the customer to give you draws on that sort of stuff, and then
Well, they were good about that, but it was all hand to mouth at that time.
Sure.
So
Okay. So where are we at now with the business? What's going on? I mean, who's working with you? How are you getting these jobs?
So that one folded up, and we're actually right now we're just in the beginning stages of reincorporating a new business.
Okay.
And I've actually got some resources. I spent the last year doing sales.
Okay.
A friend of mine asked me to come and help with his company, so I came in as an owner on the companies. We sell freeze dryers, so the Harvest Right brand freeze dryers.
Okay.
I started selling those. So from January to March 5th, when I started, the company had done $765 in gross sales. From March 5th to December 31st, I pretty much single-handedly brought it from $765 to $846,000 in gross sales.
Wow. Holy cow.
So, and that's selling a rather expensive appliance, essentially, kind of what's pictured behind me there.
Sure.
So we leveraged some of the
My wife
assets
was
that we
just
made.
talking about a freeze dryer. She wants to freeze dry beef.
Let me have a conversation with your
I
wife.
have
You
to
have
have
a
a
freeze dryer in your
conversation.
house.
She was just mentioning it. No, you know why? Because my kids love dried strawberries, and dude, they're like
Yeah.
$9 a pack, and I'm like, well, you know, is it a worthy investment? We might have to talk after this.
Yeah, it could be. I'll talk to you more about that after.
We'll catch up on that.
Yeah, so we took some of the resources that we made selling these machines, and we put that towards actually having some resources to start this painting venture back up.
Got it.
So the business partner that asked me to come and help with this thing here, I said, all right, well, let's have the company loan out some money. We'll use that money to start this, and then you can be a partner in that. So we got resources. He's better at the back end stuff,
Yeah.
work updating websites and stuff like that. That's his thing. My thing is out there selling the jobs and doing the jobs.
Sure.
So we're starting over. We're
Okay.
going to, rather than me being out in the field with all of my time occupied, spraying and rolling, I'm actually going to be selling jobs, estimating jobs, things like that. And then that's where I'm really excited to be working with you to get the drip jobs going, so that I have the infrastructure I need to make this work, so that it can function and be profitable.
It's going to be a big shift for you. If it's not already, you have the mindset of, hey, instead of me working on the product line, the fulfillment, I always like to use Amazon as a good example of what you're really doing is you're putting the widgets in the boxes and sending them out whenever you paint. And I'm not deducing the work side of things. It's so important, but that's really what you're doing. And now you have to go find the customers. You got to convert opportunity. So the difference between an average salesperson and an above average salesperson, which I'm sure now that you have so much sales experience selling these freeze dryers, is taking people that are on the fence and getting them to jump over to your side of the grass.
Right.
Different than a commodity, okay? Because ultimately what you're selling behind you is a commodity. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because ultimately it can be compared to another freeze dryer, can it? Like if I have
there's a couple of other brands.
Right. If I have two freeze dryer options, I got one over here that's sold by you, and I got another one that's sold on Amazon for $1,000 less. For me, I'm looking at, hey, how much do I value a freeze dryer? And ultimately the decision comes down to how much am I willing to spend on a freeze dryer, as opposed to what you're selling now. Right. So my question to you, and really, I'm guessing that the focus of this talk should be on sales. Is that mostly what you're looking to talk about?
Customer acquisition.
Okay.
I'm very confident in my sales.
Okay.
Pretty good close rate. I'm working specifically with a sales training agency because I'm really good at the technical, logical side of the sales. Here's the reasons why, but the emotional side of sales is a place that I'm not that great on, because to me that's not what sways me.
That's a good point. That's for you. That's not something that sways you, but for your customer, it might. So you need to learn that side of the fence, right?
Right.
All right. So when you talk about customer acquisition and sales go hand in hand, right? Because if you know the channel of where that customer is coming from, right? So let me ask you this. Let's start here and we'll work backwards. You just started this painting business. How much are you spending on marketing, if anything?
Right now, we're looking to spend probably about 8% on marketing, between 5 and 8%.
Of what?
Of projected gross. So I do so my business partner and I have a difference in the way that we do things. He likes to do things from the position of, here's how much money we have right now, so let's spend 8% of what we have right now.
Well, let's figure out that projected. Can we figure out what that projection is first? What is your projected gross sales? And how did you arrive at that?
That's the difference. Is he likes to do it from what we have, and I want to do it from what we want.
Okay. So I like your way better, to be honest with you. We got to figure out.
My way is proven to work, and his didn't.
And that's okay. That's
So
okay. Yeah, it's a little bit, but all right. So let's look at what a projection would be, right? So first of all, projection in the painting business is based off of who can actually produce. So who's going to be doing these jobs?
right now we're looking to hire painters. I might wind up doing the first few jobs just while we're in the recruiting phase. But eventually it will be,
So let's set a
paid
benchmark.
employees.
Can we set a benchmark of like what the ideal? Okay, so let's say Color Pros is a
Let me pull
franchise.
up my numbers.
Yeah. So let's say Color Pros is a franchise. You come into my town and say, hey, and I want to be a franchisee of this company. Explain to me what an ideal job site production par is for painters, right? So are you going to be a one-man painting operation? Or are you going to be a two-man team? Or are you going to be a three-man team? Which of those, something, maybe four, maybe you love the bigger teams and you want to knock jobs out quickly. What do you feel like would be optimal?
So for simple jobs like a typical bedroom, it's probably going to be a one-man show.
So you're
You
gonna
know,
get it. You're gonna run into stuff with that because here's the deal. Because this all goes back down to what type of jobs are you gonna take? Because the reality is, Dustin, is if you put together a team of two or three, and you only take on a bedroom, and that's the only job that you have for Wednesday, how are we gonna do that? Are we gonna send two people home?
well, the idea that we're starting out with is to hire one painter per quarter at a minimum, and then to build the portfolio based on
That's a
growing into.
very that's a recipe for, I'm gonna, not to offend, mediocrity. There's no
Sure.
reason why. That is a recipe for mediocrity, and I'll tell you why. Because ultimately, three painters is enough to keep you guys going through the first quarter right now. If you hired three painters right now, you could stretch out jobs in a way that at the very least, you're just selling jobs to keep them employed, to build up your system.
Yeah.
So if you look from a startup perspective, right, the goal of a startup, which I'm going to consider you a startup, the goal of a startup is to not make any money until you make money. And sometimes we got to go deep. And ultimately, man, for me, I would say waiting to hire a painter a quarter is you're losing a valuable amount of time to build camaraderie on the job site, to build a team.
Sure. And for the most part, I agree. That's just the benchmark that I've set as a minimum.
Sure.
That's not, that's not my
Okay.
maximum. That's the
So
minimum. If we can
let's say
start
you
getting
have,
jobs.
yeah, and let's say you have three. Let's say the Color Pros is three, because I just want to get to this projection number, right? So if you think about it, on average, you might hear Nick Slavik say this, but ultimately you're gonna hear that each painter should generate about $100,000 for the year. Okay.
Right. So I've got it projected. He's actually at about 150. I got about 132,000
Okay. So you're at
per painter.
132,000. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so 132,000. Now, a single painter probably isn't going to do that because of burnout. So we got to kind of look at that number and say, well, generally speaking, a team of three, maybe that 130,000 makes sense. For me, on a team of four, it's 100 to 110,000. Okay, so you kind of got to look at it and you'll feel it out. So in that case, let's just try to break that down. I'm going to just go three painters at 100,000 because that's just the safest number that we can assume. So you have 300 grand for the year with three painters. All right. So what's the monthly number on that? 300 divided by 12. All right. So that's about $25,000 a month. So you're saying that you told me that your marketing number is about 8%. Did you say?
Right.
All right. So you're looking at about $2,000 a month in marketing, right?
Yep.
Okay. What channels are you thinking about?
We're going to be building our Google portfolio.
Okay.
And then we'll have a social media presence, but I don't intend to do any necessarily marketing through there.
Okay.
Not through Facebook.
Why?
But, well, primarily with what I had found is I didn't get any good engagement when I was doing that before.
Did you do it yourself?
And right, I did. But that's why I'm hiring an ad agency. So that's part of
Sure.
what we got.
Have you hired
so
someone
that,
yet?
yeah, I've got someone hired.
Cool.
So we're going to be doing A/B testing, and we're going to go with what works. But for the first part, what we're doing is building our Google presence and our Bing presence. So in terms of demographics, the people that really can afford the paint jobs right now, they're the people who buy computers and never upgrade to Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever. They get it with Bing on it and they just run Bing. So we're going to focus primarily on Google and Bing. Google because they're the biggest, and Bing because they're the default. And then we'll put out, we'll build an online portfolio of, hey, here's the job we did. Here's pictures from that job site and stuff. So that'll go on, Facebook and whatnot. But the advertising dollars probably won't go on Facebook.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. Both of those are okay, but they're passive in terms of lead flow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an aggressive approach at all. That's, hey, I'm going to put up a profile. We'll get some posts up there. And as time goes on, that's going to mean less and less. If you're not actively on Google, you're noticing that, they're prioritizing people that pay, right? So ultimately,
yeah.
Let me ask you this. The ad agency that you hired, what are they about? Can I ask how much they're charging you per month to do Google?
Their social media management and Google management is $250 a month.
Okay, that's extremely cheap, and you're going to get very poor results.
Well, they helped me get this $800,000 for the freeze dryers, so they've done all right. And in our local market, they're one of the highest regarded ad agencies. So
for $250 a month, you might have either hit the lottery, but I would say that, man, someone that specializes in home service, it's a different ball game. At the end of the day, if you do it's going to take you quite some time to compete with the guys that are at the top of the list in your area. That's a lot of work that, man, $250, I would love to hear, I would love to hear the success story on that, but that, if it's working for you. But at the end of the day, Dustin, man, I'm trying to find an avenue to hit on here, man. And I don't want to waste your time, brother. Where do you find me coming in and helping you, man? You seem to have everything figured out.
Well, is there value in things like Angie or any of that? Are any of those leads worth anything?
Honestly, man, from my perspective, I've been doing this long enough. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of business owners. If you come on here, I want to be honest with you in a way that I try not to offend anyone, and I don't want you to think that I know everything. I'm doing this for free because I care. I really would love for you to get off on the right foot. So let's just make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm just being honest with you. I love what you're trying to do. I love that you work with your son. I love that you're trying to build this. To be honest with you, man, I know this game. It's my game. I study it.
Yeah.
I'm a student of it. First of all, you can't write off Facebook. That's where every one of your customers hangs out. So for you to tell me that Facebook is something that you're not going to put advertising dollars in, you're going to be missing out. You're going to be left out of the game. That's all. It's ultimately, if you have, if you don't like Facebook for whatever other reason, then that's totally fine. But ultimately, Facebook is where your customers are hanging out. And that also includes Instagram. When people are scrolling through Facebook and they see a before and after picture of a paint job, it triggers an emotional response. Okay. And that's really what's happening. Okay. You have two types of customers. You have ones that are going to go to Google, and you have ones that are going to go on social media. That are your two types of customers. The difference between those two types of customers are intent. Okay. Which I'm sure you understand, is that the fact that somebody's going to be Googling a painting job means that they're high intent. That means they've already made up their mind that they want a painting job. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, and those are the best customers. Don't get me wrong, and I don't think there's anything wrong with you spending money on there. I just think that that's not going to propel you in the beginning of your business, okay? Ultimately, freeze dryers versus painting companies in the local market, you have to look at it like this. There's not as many freeze dryer companies, and if there are, maybe they're not as aggressive as you were on Google, which is great. But when it comes to painting companies, if you Google painting companies in your area, there's 20 or 30 options. Well, why choose you? So at the end of the day, unless you have the most reviews on that local Google listing, which is going to take you some years to do to get authentic reviews, then you need a different approach if you want to win. And that means that you need to create the emotional response to get someone to get a paint job. How do you do that? That's done on Google. That's done on social media. Because the only way to
what do you think?
Say it again.
What do you think? What do you think the percentage of ad spend the balance is between, for instance, Google, Bing versus Facebook.
There's so many different ways to spend money on Google. You have SEO, you have local SEO, you have Google local services ads. Now you have Google guaranteed. I mean, it really depends. And that's where I say is that, you know, someone that is doing ads for the freeze dryer is not going to really know the game of Google guaranteed for contractors, because ultimately this is an entire new thing that just got created maybe a few months ago. And now there's Google guaranteed, where Google's essentially a paid lead service now, where if you have a Google guaranteed green check mark next to your name, you're going to get favored amongst everyone else because you submitted your insurance documents and you got approved. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
yeah,
different.
and that is part of what we're. Yeah, that's
Okay.
part of what we're doing here.
Part of the package. So at the end of the day, okay, they manage the Google, they manage that Google page and listing, but ultimately what's going to make you stand out most is reviews. And early on in the business, I know it took me a year to get 25 reviews. Okay. So many people don't just jump at companies that have less than reviews. It's really about who's around them. If 8 companies have over 30 reviews and you have none, generally speaking, you're going to be missing out on a lot of traffic just because of that. So that's something that I'm saying. If you want a strategic advantage, the strategic advantage is social media, because you have the ability to showcase your personality. You know, I think did you not recently just post a picture of you and your son working together?
Definitely.
I think that's your profile picture. Let me tell you something. If you ran an ad on Facebook with you and your son with the same caption that you put out that said something along the lines of "There's nothing better than working with my son," was that you? I think that was you, right? Okay. Yeah. That triggers something emotional in somebody who values family, that ultimately you're not going to get that on Google. That's all I'm saying, right? And if that just pops up on their Facebook, because he's got 2 guys, he's got a paint sprayer in his hand, and it says, "Hey, you know, homeowners in my area, hey, my name's Dustin. We just started Color Pros North with my son, and we're here to, you know, make an impact." Right. And ultimately, that is the type of relationships that you want to build that you can't build on Google or on Bing. And that creates loyalty, which you also don't have on Google and Bing. Last point, you asked me about Angie leads. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Really, man, these are just people on the other side of the computer screen putting in their information. The thing is, they trust Angie leads more than they trust you because they don't know you. Right. So ultimately, they're very good, but you got to realize the game you're playing is there's 4 other people that are going to get the same information. How do you stand out? One of the ways, of course, with drip jobs is you can set it up to where they automatically get a text and an email. And within that email, you create the context. What does it say? Tell your story, tell who you are, call immediately, nurture that lead. So it's a different ball game. But at the end of the day, you know, $2,000 right off the bat. You know, again, I would allocate at least 50% of that to Facebook, but that would require you having somebody to manage and operate it, which might be a little bit more.
Well, the folks that I have, they will do it. I've just directed them to help us build our Google presence first. So they're going to do whatever I ask them to do.
Sure.
They're not steering me. They say, here's our set of skills. And we just spent the last year, you know, trying to do it.
Yeah.
And I spent, you know, pretty much out of that revenue that we generated, I think we might have spent $3,000 on advertising. The rest of it was just me being present.
I mean, I'm just being honest with you. You nailed a niche. I mean, that's why it was so successful. But don't think that it's going to be that easy in home service. It's not. It's just
right.
Totally
no, I don't.
I mean, I'm just making it clear because that's an amazing accomplishment what you did with your, you know, with the freeze dryers. But again, with what we're trying to do here, this is a game that so many people are trying to figure out. And for me, in my experience, $250 a month, again, either you hit the lottery or you're going to be set up for a major disappointment when it comes to your results. Now, have they generated any leads or opportunities for you yet? Or are we just getting set up?
I haven't even just getting set up still. I'm still working on, I'll get my EIN this week. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. I mean, part of what you were asking was lead acquisition. The secret here, you get as many leads as you can from all sorts of channels, do as many estimates as you can. But I would also think of it like this, man, go into this thing with the end goal in mind. The goal here, like you said, man, and I was happy to hear you're not painting. You don't want to paint. You're here to do estimates. You're here to sell. You're here to grow the team. Finding one good applicant to join your company, takes maybe going through 10 different interviews to get to that one person.
Yeah.
So my question to you again, you know, I didn't ask this yet, but what does the hiring funnel look like right now? I mean, do we have an ad out? Do we have anything in that regard working yet? And if so, would you like some insight on how I find my painters?
I would like insight on how you find your painters. Um, I've generated some ad copy to put out,
Okay.
and full disclosure, I totally plagiarized Nick Slavic.
I don't think he'd mind.
I don't think you would either. That's why I don't mind admitting it. But I've generated like 20 different
Okay.
ad copies based off of the one
Sure.
that he put out that really struck me the most. Um, I've structured my pay schedule to be quite similar to what he has,
Yeah.
in terms of pay scale, the ability to grow as your skills
Yeah.
improve. As productivity goes up, you
Cool.
get better pay, things like that. Um, I haven't put anything out yet because,
Yeah.
again, I'm waiting on my EIN. I'm
Good.
waiting on my
I would just
insurance.
say this: at the end of the day, it's there's nothing wrong with putting something out just to see what comes back in. Ultimately,
Yeah,
just put something out to see what comes back in, so you can see, hey, man, what type of people are applying? Uh, what are they?
the,
What are some things that I can read on this resume that would make me think, is this the type of person that I want? Right.
right. The thing that I'm really looking for in this aspect is, where are you recruiting from? I mean, I can go down to the Benjamin Moore
Yeah.
store and hang out and solicit painters as they're coming in and hand out business cards or
Think of
whatever.
hiring as lead generation, right? The same way you're thinking, man, where do
Yeah,
I find these customers, is the same thing that you want to think of, man, where do I find these painters? Because really, if you position yourself as the middleman, that's really what you're doing. You're connecting the supply and you're connecting the demand. These are the companies that
right.
scale so fast because they are not painting, because they realize, hey, I'm going to spend resources as much as possible on recruiting painters. And then I'm going to spend as much resources as possible on recruiting uh, customers, right? That's all they
Yeah,
do, is they just move the money around, right? And they obviously build it within from there, but ultimately it's like, man, where are people applying, right? That should be the thought, is like, well, if I had to allocate one, money to one resource, it'd probably be Indeed, because I just feel like everyone, that's someone's first instinct when they want to find a job, is like, man, let me go on Indeed. I don't think anyone does it better, right? I just stopped doing everything else. I'm like, man, if I'm going to do something, I'd rather it be in one place. That's where everyone goes, right? They've just
okay.
capitalized on they just took over the market there. So Indeed, and they have such great hiring tools. You can actually set up video interviews where people would actually send in a little video. Like, you might ask a question, hey, how important is getting this job to you? Right. And then you would want a video response, and then just watch the videos and start learning the process of trying to hire strangers, which is always a challenge. Right. And again,
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping you from doing that now, and maybe even pacing it out to the point to where you'll be ready. I think you said by the end of January, you want to launch this thing, right? Was that the goal?
Yeah, we're trying to be up and moving by February 1st.
Love
Part of
that.
the fear here, part of the fear here is hiring a guy and then not having a job for him to go do,
Okay. That's one way to
because we
look
don't
at
we,
it.
we don't have any jobs on the books
That's
yet. So,
that's one way to look at it, Dustin. But for me, I've never had a greater motivation than when I did hire someone and I was now held accountable to make sure they had work to do, right?
yeah,
I mean, doesn't that channel some
right.
sort of resourcefulness that we don't usually get when it's just us or a family member? We'd be like, hey, man, we don't have work this week. But so ultimately,
Yeah,
man, like, I would look at that as more of a hedge than it is, something to delay to make sure everything's perfectly aligned. Because that's going to be the theme of your entire business, is deciding when the right time to hire is versus when, how many jobs we have. Like, it doesn't usually work out to where we get this big job and then we want to just hire really quick because we have the confidence in our schedule. It kind of requires us having a
right.
little bit of faith ahead of time, and then, meeting that demand through our saying, you know what, hey, we hired this rock star, hey, let's just do the Facebook marketing and let's get as many leads as possible. And now you're like motivated to convert that customer more so than you would be without that pressure.
Yeah, yeah. I agree, and I have a history of leaning into the things I fear. So,
I love
just
that. Yeah, just do it.
so
I would say that's definitely something I would do, like, at least today, is to get an ad out just to see what comes out, or just to learn the Indeed platform, man, because it's like, and
okay.
I'll just tell you this, in my experience, I don't know what yours is, and I might ask, like, have you hired people consistently before? It sounds like you've just maybe have done a lot of this type of work yourself, or maybe had someone come in and, like, have you ever had a structured
It
hiring process before?
In the trades, no. But
Okay.
as a kid, I was in retail management, so I
Oh,
was,
yeah.
I hired people.
Okay. So in the trades, what you're going to learn is it again, like I mentioned, I blitzed through this, but you're going to have to go through about 4 or 5 people that you really think are good fits to get to a really good fit. And that's just, at
Yeah,
least from my experience, and I'm being very liberal on that number because ultimately, man, it's like, first you got to identify what you're looking for. And I think the first thing you got to realize is this is the first person coming into this company, right? This person can't just be a helper because guess what, Dustin? You're going to be working if he's just a helper,
yeah, yeah,
right? So it has to be somebody that knows all aspects of painting, right? Or at least to the degree of which you hire them or you get a job to do a bedroom, they know the order of operations. But guess what? There's this whole other side of it, Dustin, is can they talk to the customer when you're not there? Right? You can have a great
yeah.
painter, but if they're extremely rough around the edges and they make you feel uncomfortable, you're not going to send them in someone's home, right? So again, it's January 4th. It might take you 4 weeks to go through 60 applicants, do 10 phone interviews, do 4 in-person interviews to finally land on somebody that you say, you know what, this is the guy. That's what I'm saying is that's proactive. And again, when it comes to a marketing campaign, if you can align marketing with this hire at the same time, mesh them together. And again, I'll tell you, man, Facebook is a monster. They know what they're doing in terms of, hey, is boosting a post going to generate me income? It could, but it's not as good as someone else managing your ads for you, building creative, reusing copy that they know works for a painter in a different city, right? That has
Yeah,
converted over and over
yeah.
and over again. Like you're really paying for somebody to optimize your dollar in that regard. And if you
Right.
have someone cool, great, but home service is different. I would at least ask if they've worked with any home services before. Maybe they have, maybe they
That's
haven't.
actually their bread and butter.
Is
Their
it?
whole their I was the odd one out trying to sell a product.
Okay.
The whole rest of their thing is services.
Well, if you drop their info, you're going to get flooded with requests for what they're charging. I mean, hey, if it works, it works. I mean, I can't deny. I can't deny
Can I
results.
give a shout out?
Yeah. Anyone
Sure.
listen? People are
They're out
probably
of
like, "Who is this company?" I'd love to know. Who is it?
they're out of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and they're
Okay.
called Front ROI.
Front.
All one word, Front ROI.
Well, guarantee you, people are going to reach out to them.
Yeah,
And
just make sure I get my affiliate link.
yeah, yes. Hey, tell them Dustin sent so he gets paid. But
Exactly.
man, look, Dustin, I want you to get off on the
All
right
of a
foot.
sudden, my advertising goes to zero.
Can we talk real quick about the emotional selling that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, this is something I don't know
So,
anything about. So,
all right,
I mean,
and
I
you're
have
going to
some
learn it.
ideas,
It's
but
just I'd rather you learn it with strategy rather than by failing.
fire.
Fire, right? Like ultimately, I want you to realize that emotional selling starts with one question, and it's called why. That's all. It's just why, right?
Yeah.
You want to identify why someone wants the job, right? And I want to ask you because I think this translates to anything. Why does somebody want a freeze dryer? What are some reasons?
They want to, like you, they want to provide healthy, nutritious snacks for their family.
Okay.
A lot of the people that I sell to, they want to start a side hustle, so they freeze dry candy and they resell the candy. But there's kind of two markets.
So mostly you would
There's
say healthy lifestyle, side hustle. I think we have don't we have a hunter's market of people that want to store their beef that they get from hunting?
I don't know anyone hunting beef, but
Not hunting, you know what I mean? Venison.
yeah. You need to spend more time with Nick Slavic.
I think so. Ow, they're just farm just like shooting at guns.
Yeah, well, there's kind of two markets. So the candy market, the entrepreneurial side of things is a tiny minority.
Yeah.
There's 500,000 of these units in service, and if 30,000 of them are owned by candy makers, I'd be surprised.
So most of it for people that want healthy foods, healthy snacks type of thing.
Right. So it's got to do with lifestyle. It's got to, and this is why I love selling these things, because the people that buy these things, they're forward thinking.
Yeah.
they're concerned about the future. They want to be prepared. They're the kind of people that you want to know,
Right. Okay. So
salt
tell
of the
me,
earth.
so when you hear somebody is like me, I was like, hey man, we want healthy snacks for our kid. You kind of light up and say, this is my ideal customer, right? Like
100%.
this is a lock. Like it's almost like because you know so much value around this, and you know that what you offer provides so much value around this. So when you talk about emotional selling, the first thing is to identify your ideal customer profile. When it comes to commodity, like what you're offering here, as you have the ideal customer profile, probably middle-aged, 30s, man or woman.
It's almost always women 50 plus.
Is it really? Okay.
Yep. So it's the same people who buy painting services.
True. Okay. So they're kind of in the same world. But my thought would be, hey man, maybe the market would be somebody that has young kids, maybe like me, or it could just be somebody sometimes, right? So that's your ICP, man. It's just this specific type of individual. Now, and you kind of name too. Then you have the side hustle guy where he's probably looking at dollars rather than the intrinsic value, right?
Right. It's easier for me to sell to the entrepreneur than it is to if it's someone like you, that's really the hard part, because then I got to sell you on
$3,000 on this. Like, is health worth it, right?
Well, the health side of it is obviously worth it, but how many bags of fruit are you actually going to eat?
Yeah,
if it's a snack and a treat, that's like, hey, I like Snickers bar. Should I buy a Snickers factory?
Right. So how do you provide value to somebody? So you did a great job of selling these things, but let me ask you this. You just told me the objections, right? Like, tell me how you were able to provide value and sell it.
Well, for that, I go to my logic and I say, hey, look, how many bags of frozen strawberries do you buy in a year?
Right.
Or how much food does your family throw away in a year?
Sure.
When your wife makes spaghetti for the family, does a third of it wind up in the freezer to die a slow death of freezer burn and never to see the sun again? You have a choice here. You can put it in the freezer and let it die a slow death and throw it away, and now you've lost that money. Or you stick it in the freeze dryer, you freeze dry it, and then if you've got 10-plus-year-old kids, when they come home from school and you're at work late, they pull it out and they can have a hot meal that is nutritious. It's not SpaghettiOs. It's not, Chef Boyardee. You've got mom's home-cooked food ready to rock and roll just by boiling some water in the microwave or something.
Love that. Okay, so right now, when I compare that to painting, you're convincing someone as to why they should paint their house, right? Well, you want to make sure that you protect the wood. You want to make sure that, the house is sealed.
Because you've made a significant investment.
It has great resale value, right? So here's the deal. Here's the deal. There's not many options for a freeze dryer, right? I mean, I don't think so ultimately you're the clear choice as long as you do what you're doing. Now, in the painting side of things, most people know that they should paint the house. The key here is to get them to buy it from you. To buy it from you, right? So everyone's coming to that customer saying, hey, you can save your food, and that you're going to save money here, or you can have healthy snacks. And it's like, okay, you should paint your house because they obviously know that at that point. So the game now changes to why they should hire Dustin and Color Pros. And the thing is that the only way to do that is to drill down into the why beyond the painting, right? We don't sell painting. I don't sell painting. I sell a dream, and it's their dream, and I'm just making them aware that I can sell it to them. So here's what I want you to know is that there's all sorts of different types of customers. You mentioned that in your business of freeze dryer, you have the mom or the healthy individual that wants a healthy, lifestyle, and then you have the entrepreneur. That's two. But in the painting business, man, we have a bunch, right? So the first one is someone that's moving into a home, right? So they're moving into the new home, okay? And they're going to stay there. Maybe it's a forever home. Maybe it's a long-term move, okay? Now, would you agree that somebody moving into a home, okay, and somebody who
want to personalize,
right, and somebody who is calling you and say, hey, man, I'm flipping this home, would you agree that those people value different things?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. So
the flipper wants a whiz bang, get out of his way.
Right.
Super cheap, high profit margin.
Right. So if the only thing in your arsenal is to go there and explain why they should paint, then ultimately you have no basis to really get someone to sway to pay you more. Right. So we got to know ahead of time. And the cool thing is that there's a finite amount of people types that buy our services, which is cool because that means we can identify what they need, what they want, and what they desire. And then we can position our sales process in a way that aligns with it. So the lady moving into her house, if I called you, Dustin, right now, and I said, hey, Dustin, Color Pros, I saw your great Google ad by this company that you hired. They must be amazing. And I would like an estimate to paint. Okay. And I say, Dustin, I'm moving into the house. What would be your next move?
That's very exciting news. Congratulations on your new home. Is this a place you plan on being forever? And when you moved in, what did you think of the colors of the home? And what would you like to change?
Okay.
How do you want to make it your own?
Okay. I haven't moved in just yet, Dustin, but yes, I think this is going to be the place that we spend a long time in.
Awesome. Do you have a color palette in mind, or do you need a color consultation, or
we have an
do you
idea.
have some ideas from Pinterest?
Yeah, we have an idea. Yeah, a color consultation would be nice. Sure.
Okay. When would be a good time to schedule that?
Well, the thing is that I got the realtor that's going to have access to the house, so we kind of got to coordinate her schedule. So I'm not quite sure yet.
How can I make that easier? Can I get their numbers and see what their schedule looks like, and we can work something out?
You could do that.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead and shoot that over to me through this number that you got me on here. Just send it as a text, and I'll take care of that. I'll schedule that.
Okay.
And then I'll get back to you with what they say and how that aligns with my schedule.
Good. All right. Here's the deal.
So
I want you to realize though, you did okay, but you didn't keep all right. So I want you to position yourself as the person who's moving in, and you have to reach out to a painting company. Okay. What are other things going on right now outside of painting that are important for someone that's moving in? Movers, maybe?
Coordinating with movers. Yeah.
Right. Movers. Right. So you got movers, you got a realtor, you got a closing date. Yeah. Right. You got all these things. So can't you be more of a facilitator as opposed to somebody that is just focused on the painting? Screw the painting, right? We know we're going to do a good job. You called me. We're going to change the color of the house, right? The painting's not important. Colors are okay. But what's more important, Mrs. Jones, is figuring out when you're closing so I can align my schedule to make sure that the job gets done before you move in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So the conversation, if it were me, so go ahead and ask me and I'll tell you what I would say. So you're calling me, you want your house painted.
Sure. We'd like to get the house painted, and we closed on it, but we haven't moved in yet.
Okay.
And that's still kind of pending.
Sure. When are the movers scheduled?
2 weeks from now.
Okay. So we need to move quick. First thing I need you to know is that we can make this happen. So rest assured you called the right company. Second thing I want you to know is that we're going to speed things up here. We have painted all sorts of homes. Chances are there's over 50 photos online of your house. What I'm going to do is put together a quote for you and send it to you within the hour so we can get moving on this if we're the right fit.
Okay. So that builds in the sense of urgency.
Urgency and keeping in mind, doesn't that save them all those steps of the realtor? Right? Doesn't that save them all the questions of how much it's going to cost? Doesn't that supersede the logic of price when I'm adding value in relation to their goal?
Yeah.
Because ultimately I know that their goal is to move in. Their goal, they want a great paint job, but they want to get in their house. And the last thing they want to do is have to call their movers and say, hey, we need to adjust the schedule. No one wants to do that, dude. Right?
Yeah.
So the first thing is affirm after you hear the closing date that you can make it happen. Right? Because that's a big concern. Man, we waited too long to call the painters. I didn't even think about it. Right? We want this house painted before we move in. We don't want to deal with painters and then have to move things again. Right? So that's emotional selling, is understanding that most of the time we're not selling the paint job. Right? And we win the game against people that are selling the paint job, explaining to customers why they need things painted. They know they need it painted. We're just showing you now. We're already 3 steps ahead by explaining to you why you should pick us. Hey, first of all, I answered the phone prompt. I answered the right questions. I'm on the same page as you. I know your goal. Okay. Who cares? I'll do the estimate online. I'll probably beef it up a little bit too. You know, if I make a major mistake, then I made the major mistake. But ultimately, you and I can probably, Dustin, both look at a house online and come up with a price. together and be not too far
Yeah.
from one another, right? I mean, ultimately we can.
Right.
So what it really
Yeah.
requires, and then again, here's another type of customer. So we have someone moving into a house, someone flipping a house. Okay. What about somebody moving out of a house that they lived in, not flipping, but moving into a new home? Tell me how you would build value with that individual.
Without being in the scripted mode, I'm going to look at more budget-minded options in terms of paint. I'm not going to try and put, Sherwin-Williams Emerald on the wall to, for a color that's probably going to get changed when the next people move in.
And I want you to remember that, because that's why the question of why is a non-negotiable, because if we don't know that ahead of time, I've been in this position. I've done my whole sales spiel. And then at the end, they say, well, I'm just moving anyway. And I talked about duration, talked about all the good product, warranty. And they're probably thinking like, I don't care about any of that stuff.
Don't care.
Don't care.
It's none of my business after I move out.
But again, you're missing the major. Listen, let me tell you something. The thing that creates the most sales in our economy is urgency. Okay. So although, yes, you're doing them a favor by not talking about things that are expensive. First of all, instead of telling me what you're not going to do, tell me what you are going to do. You are going to offer a budget-friendly option in terms of paint. So, hey, just so you know, for people that move out, we don't put the highest product. We actually have a product called Super Paint Flat that's great for move-outs. Okay. And it's super affordable. It's going to save you guys a lot of money. Next, here's the deal. I actually have an opening. It's a 3-day opening, which is about the time we'll need to do this job, coming up in the next week or so, that I can get you guys in here so we can get some photos taken and get this house listed. Emotional selling is just aligning your sales process with what their desires are, so it makes it feel like you're an advocate for their goal, right? Another example, somebody that gets a letter from an HOA, right? This is somebody that doesn't really value painting but has to do it. How do we win them over?
Well, I don't know on that one. That one.
So you just got an HOA letter. You're my customer. You called me and said, Tanner, I need an estimate. HOA just sent me a letter. How can I be the guy you choose?
These dirtbags at the HOA are giving me a hard time. I can't stand those Karens. I need to get this problem solved right away, man.
Well, what it comes down to is, let's think about it. First of all, you don't want to spend the money that I'm going to have to charge you. And I understand that. So I'm going to highlight how affordable we are, right? I just went from a premium painting company to an affordable painting company by a change of words. Don't worry, we have an affordable option for this situation. Second, here's the deal. Once you approve the proposal, I'll go ahead and send it to your HOA for you so they know not to fine you if they were planning on doing so. Okay. And that'll buy us some time so we can get things in line so they don't send you any more letters. I know that's stressful. Last, we actually have a pressure washing package. I noticed that the driveway and walkway in the front of your house could use it. I'm going to throw that in for free so you don't get another letter. You see, it's like, dude, it's like, oh, okay. You got my back, right? I just gave you 3 different sales pitches. Your job is to create 7 or 8 based on the specific scenario. And what this is all about is alignment, Dustin. That's emotional selling. It's actually having empathy in regards to the person's specific situation and selling the way that you would want to be sold. So keep that in mind. And it starts with why. As soon as you figure out that reasoning, reverse engineer what would be best case scenario for you. If you were that person moving into a house, you have all these movers, you got all the schedule, you have to call companies to come out, you have to meet them, you don't know who you're going to hire. And then you call Premium Painting and they give you a quote within an hour that's accurate, and they get on the schedule and then they're coming in before the movers come in. And I just saved you a major headache.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So that was not at all what I imagined with emotional selling. I mean, to me, that's the logic of it.
It is. It is logical, but it's not self-explanatory. So that's why I think it crosses the barrier of emotion, because it's not something that's like cut and dry. It's like, it's pretty simple.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really putting the modus operandi as being a service provider, not just a painter.
100%. Bingo. We don't paint. We paint. We facilitate your end result. And we know that some people just call us just because they want to change the color. That's where we emphasize that color consultation. It's all about the color consultation. It's
Yeah.
all about the appeal. It's all about how amazing it's going to look. It's all about, I mean, this is sale. You know,
That's the selling the dream rather than
selling the
solving the
dream,
problem.
brother. And that's the emotional aspect of it. No one wants to be, I've been sold a lot of stuff. And the worst feeling is when somebody is selling stuff for their reasons instead of your reasons, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's done subconsciously. That's not done, you know, it just feels that way. It's like I've had people come and give me quotes for things, didn't even ask me why I wanted the job done or what the reasoning behind was. So what did I do, Dustin? I just looked at the two quotes and went with the cheapest because no one else showed me why I should pay more. Logically, that didn't make sense.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Dustin, man, we covered a lot, brother. I think that's our time. Thank you,
man.
I
appreciate it, man. This has been great. Yeah, very valuable.
Cool, man.
Very much appreciated.
Man, I want to see
to help you get a better perspective.
I want to see big things out of Color Pros this year, man. You guys are going to do a great job. And I'd love to get, hey, man, if I can leave you with anything, get that hiring ad out today so you can just start seeing what comes. Okay. You can learn Indeed. You can figure out how to put that ad out, test your copy, right? Test your, you know, test the data, man, your marketing today. And really the goal is to sell the dream to the people that are on the other side of that, who are at a job where they're not happy because you need a leader. And in your copy, you have to indicate that you're looking for a crew leader. Don't look for anything. You can't right now. Your first hire needs to be a crew leader. It needs to be. I mean, you're gonna, either that or you're going to be on the job a lot more than you should be.
Okay.
All right, man.
Cool.
Good luck to you, my friend.
So how do I get a hat, man?
I'll send you one.
I appreciate it.
You just got to ask. I got you.
I did. You're like one of those hats.
I will definitely get you a hat. Just send me your mailing address on Facebook. I'll take care of you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Hey,
thanks so much for the
conversation. Anytime, man. Come back again in a few weeks. I'd love to hear how things are going.
Sounds great, man. We'll touch base.
Take care, man.
All right, later.